about divine order today because it is one of the most misunderstood and misused principles and powers in the unity movement. You know, unity members use it almost like fundamentalists use it's all God's will. You know, disaster will happen and they'll say it's God's will. Well, no, God would never will a disaster. And unity members, I can include myself in this, well, no matter what happens, it's all in divine order. It's all good. There can be an accident, you can have broken limbs and blood all over the highway. It's all in divine order. It's all good. Can you relate to that? So we're really going to look at it today because first of all, the divine presence, by whatever name you call that presence, would never will suffering. But the universe is created in divine order through our consciousness, and it's the human consciousness that divine presence has to move through that can create the chaos and the disharmony. And divine order is a real paradox. Let's take an example and look at the paradox of the answers. The war in Ukraine. Sad, horrible. Some people would say it's all in divine order. Is it or isn't it? Well, yes and no. I'm a Gemini. I'm going to give you both answers. You can choose whichever one you like. First of all, no. Again, divine mind has no warring thoughts. Absolutely none. Only the thought of peace, harmony, oneness, love. But war comes out of that chaos of going through human consciousness of fear, separation, attack, and defend. So the order in that, yes, it is in divine order in that the creative process manifests through consciousness, and the order is that everything happens for a reason of the law of cause and effect, and the warring thoughts that we all hold in consciousness of fear, separation, attack, and defend, seeing others is what the divine presence has to move through. So you see, it gets a little complicated. But true divine order is the systematic process of creation. And you really empower yourself when we learn to understand how that works. We can use it to our advantage and empower ourselves. First of all, through prayer. Repeat with me if you're comfortable. Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. Together, thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. So if I have chaos in my life, the divine order of that is what was I thinking? You know, what is the consciousness that drew this to me? And I don't mean that to be a metaphysical guilt trip. There are many things that go into what we face each day. Some of it is what our soul is doing to strengthen ourselves, but that's a whole nother message. But the more we can attune to our divine nature, the more the outer will reflect true divine order. And we see that in our personal lives and in the collective. Now, we know when we're out of divine order. We're out of divine order when we're going into our ranting and raving and our emotional reactions. Anybody been there this week? So certainly if you turn the TV on and watch the news, you were probably there for a while. Or when we resist the flow, we fight it. The flow is taking me here and I don't want to go there. I'm going to fight it, resist it. Or we try to control and manipulate, and we take ourselves out of divine order. So how to get back into divine order? Well, we affirm divine order in prayer to center ourselves, to become calm again. Divine order. I center myself in the truth of my being. I find that peace again that passes all understanding, to put myself, my consciousness, back in divine order. And then I trust where the flow is taking me. And the synchronicity of the universe is shifting to support my soul evolution. I don't have to fight what's before me in life. One of the fun stories I love to tell about this not resisting or fighting what is. When Michael and I took the church in Arizona, we flew out there for the weekend so they could meet us and we could do a service and so on. And flying out there, we had a stopover in Dallas, and one of the worst blizzards and snowstorms happened just as we landed. And all the flights, you could see it, they read off the flights that cancel. Every one of them was canceling. Well, Michael and I just sat and said, well, divine order. If that church is meant to be ours, we'll get there, or it'll work out somehow. Well, another guy on the plane wasn't a Unity guy, obviously. He was in a frenzy. And he was an absolute jerk. He was ranting and raving at the airline staff, and he was, calling all the hotels and the car rentals and other airlines. He was just having a hissy fit. Someone should have put a sign on his back, out of order. He was truly out of divine order. Now, the miracle of miracles, and I love it when this has happened. It's happened to me more than once. Ours was one of the few flights that got out that night. One of the few. All the rest, cancel. And ours was able to take off. Why, I don't know. But anyway, we watched as this guy came on board, and he was an absolute wreck. He was in a frenzy, worn out. And I thought, gee, if only he would have affirmed divine order and saved himself all the stress, all the ranting and raving, he could have been at peace. So again, let's look at what is divine order and what is not divine order. Going back to divine order is the systematic process of the creative principle. Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind, both personally and collectively. And that's why sometimes we bump into things, because the collective is very strong and bigger than us. So we're all in this together. Divine order is always in the flow of the universe, not fighting against it. And it's always in harmony with the divine idea of our highest potential. Now here's where it gets tricky. Divine order can sometimes look like chaos, but it's healthy chaos, not unhealthy chaos. And here's how. Anybody here clean the house last week? And did you clean the house like I do? I move all the furniture around and then vacuum under it, and then you move it back. So while you're moving all that furniture around, what does it look like? Chaos, right? And so when we have an idea, I have an idea of something, or when the divine idea of who we are is trying to pull us into a higher place, our lives can look like chaos, because the universe immediately starts to shift. You want this? Okay, then you got to get rid of this. A perfect example, one of my best friends in ministerial school used to tell the story that when she first had the call to ministry and decided she would like to go to ministerial school, she went home from Unity Village that weekend, and the next day they called her. She lost her job, and the lease on her apartment was canceled. And so all of a sudden, she has a divine idea of what she wants to do for the rest of her life, and she loses her job and her place to live. And she thought, wow, divine order. The universe is supporting my decision. And she knew that was the right decision to make, because the universe was already shifting to support her. So that's how chaos can look like chaos, but it's part of divine order. Now, divine order is not an unhealthy chaos. And an unhealthy chaos is when people are ranting and raving and trying to control and manipulate, or resisting and fighting what's going on, or having these emotional reactions. That's when we need those out of order signs to put on our backs. Would you repeat with me if you're comfortable? The universe conspires for my good. Together, the universe conspires for my good. It's amazing to watch things shift when we decide to reach a goal or to attempt something. Now, we've all heard that before, the universe conspires for my good, but let's look at the whole picture. There's more that goes with that, and it's kind of long, so I'm going to say it and then we'll repeat it in 3 parts. I am in a never-ending spiral of evolving evolution for the unfolding of my potential. Let's break that into 3 parts. I am in a never-ending spiral. I am in a never-ending spiral of an evolving evolution, for the unfolding of my potential. So what that means is the divine idea of us is this perfection that we're certainly, none of us, myself included, are able to manifest on these lower planes. But grace, divine love and grace, is constantly pulling us higher if we don't get in the way. Oops, all together now. Oops, if we don't get in the way, as the universe shifts to take us there. And I don't always like how that feels when the universe starts shifting me. But if I relax, that's what surrender is, one of the most powerful spiritual practices. I release and let go. I allow the universe to take me where obviously I'm supposed to be going right now, whether I like it or not. And then we end up in a higher place. Now, a small way I practice this is when I come to a red light. How many go ballistic when you come to a red light, you know? But I like to affirm divine order at red lights. I figure, man, I've been going too fast this morning. The universe is just slowing me down. Opportunity to get myself back into divine order. Another example I had one time. This is with my ex, which is why he was my ex. He was late for everything. And I wanted to go see this movie at this artsy theater about the Dalai Lama in Tibet, and I couldn't wait to see this movie. I'd been waiting all week. And of course, we were so late in getting there. I knew we were going to miss probably the first third of the movie. But first I had to practice some forgiveness on my ex. Okay, I forgive, and then I had to affirm divine order. I affirmed divine order. All the way we drove, I affirmed divine order. And you know what? When we got there, the owner of the theater met us at the door, and he said, "It's okay, come on in. There was something wrong with the projector. The movie's just starting." We didn't miss a thing. And of course, my ex was pretty smug that we didn't miss a thing. But that's a whole other message saved for another day. Neil Donald Walsh talked about life conspiring in our favor. And he said it may not always look that way, but it is. I assure you, everything that is happening just the way it must, to give you a chance to become and to know at the highest level who you really are. And I have really seen that with this Ukraine thing. I've almost been excited at watching how people are responding to it and getting behind the Ukrainians. The whole collective consciousness is having to decide, who are we going to be in this? How are we going to respond to this? And I don't think ever before in history has the world responded quite like they are. I realize it's not enough. It hasn't healed it all yet. It's still happening. But collective consciousness is really struggling right now and trying to decide, what did he say? A chance to become and to know at the highest level who you really are. Wow. I don't like to call it divine order, but there might be some purpose in it. Romans 8 promises us God turns all things to good to those who love and to those who trust divine order. But we resist divine order because when things are happening we don't like, we almost feel like we're disappearing, we're going to lose ourselves. Like the wicked witch who said, I'm melting, you know. A shaman once said the ego is like an ice cube in a glass of water, trying desperately not to melt, wanting to maintain the hard rigidity of itself no matter what. When we all should just be allowing ourselves, yes, I'm melting, thank God, I'm melting into a higher state of mind. So it's important for us all, myself included, not to judge when things out there aren't as we think they should be. We are all on an expanded journey to the fullness of the Christ consciousness, And thank God we will make it in spite of ourselves. That's the only thing that gives me peace someday, is knowing I'm going to make it in spite of myself. In spite of myself. So let's see how we can empower ourselves. And you know me, I always go to prayer. We pray divine order. Now, we don't pray divine order to fix out there. And God is not a man in the sky that decides, I'm going to answer your prayer but not yours, or something like that. Or change his mind. If we just pray hard enough, we'll change God's mind. No. That's not what prayer is about. Prayer is not about filling out a request form 509 in triplicate. Prayer is about shifting my consciousness so that my field of resonance is higher. We don't get what we pray for. We get what we resonate with, what our vibrational state resonates with. And we use words of truth in prayer. I pray in divine order. That's all I have to say is divine order. And I feel myself shift to that place in me that is in order, that is divine, that totally trusts and loves and enters the flow in surrender. So the way that you know if you're in divine order is that relaxation of all the tension. You feel a lightness. I'm in the flow. I'm not struggling anymore. And I relax into divine order with total faith and trust. So I have 3 more prayers. Would you pray with me? And then we'll listen to some more great music. I affirm divine order. Together, I affirm divine order. I relax into the flow of the universe. Together, I relax into the flow of the universe as it conspires for my good. Together, as it conspires for my good. And so it is. Amen.
Take the break, friend.